Well, good morning, folks. It is minus 37 out here this morning. The wind chill of minus 49, which just my breath is, that's all it takes to get to minus 49. It doesn't require any ripping wind or anything like that. Anyways, I'm going to try and command start the truck this morning. I had it plugged in. It's got this stupid cord that GM puts in there. So let's see if this works. Bingo, we're in business. So I just came back in from the chicken house. I just checked on them, give them some feed, and see how warm it was in the chicken house. The other day I did a video on how warm it gets in our chicken house, and some folks that are also trying deep litter method are having limited success. I will say one of the biggest things you got to do is start that deep litter early on in the year. We start right in the summertime, start building layers. That way there is a ton of microbial activity working inside that deep litter pile. So by the time winter hits, you're cooking, right? You're ready to go. If in November you just put in, your first layer of wood shavings, chances are there's going to be zero microbial activity that can take off. Next spring, however, you'll probably have a smoking hot pile when everything warms up and the microbial activity picks up. But this is something you've got to start early on. With that said, it doesn't mean that our chicken house stays hot all the time. So the other day in the late afternoon with the sun coming out of the south, it was 6 degrees in there. The water was defrosted, everything, and you could reach your hand inside the pile and it was nice and warm. This morning, we just talked about this, it's almost a minus 50 wind chill, and it is minus 10 in there, right? But it is noticeably warmer than it is outside. That's a 40-degree difference from outside to inside. So that's significant. The other thing you got to do to succeed with that is keep your carbon to nitrogen balance at the proper ratio. So you want a good 30-to-1 ratio. If you get skewed from that, you're either going to get really, really mucky bedding because it's got too much wet poop in it, too much nitrogen. Or you'll be too dry and dusty because you got too much wood shavings in there, or whatever medium you're using, hay or straw or something like that. We really like to use wood shavings because it releases the moisture and it reduces ammonia production. And ammonia production is a really good indicator. It's a lagging indicator. It's obviously a consequence, but it does let you know two things. You got too much humidity in your chicken house and you don't have enough carbon on your floor. All right, so today we came as close to a family emergency as we have in quite some time. Last night, actually it was last night, because last night I came home, we could not find Mittens the cat. Mittens is the cat that lives in the shop here, keeps all the mice down, and we were distraught. Like, where is Mittens? Looked all over the place, looked under the chicken house, searched the whole yard, couldn't find Mittens. Well, hopefully she's under the chicken house, gonna stay warm. This morning came out, searched the yard again, couldn't find her. Come daylight, searched the yard again, couldn't find her. And your heart gets heavy and you think it's minus 50 outside. This little cat, like, you know in your heart of hearts what has happened, you just don't want to admit to it. But thankfully, actually the neighbor's neighbor posted on Facebook that they had found Mittens. And here she is. Must have gone for a hitchhike, I think, perhaps in my truck when I went to work. So thankfully Mittens is okay. Spent the night camping. Probably not going to do that again. Okay, so I'm just back here at the grain shed. I was going to grab some grain and I saw the old Massey and I thought, this got me thinking. I've seen some folks asking to have small tractors like this. As you can tell, we don't use this one a lot in the wintertime, but there's some folks that do, and they're wondering how they can move a round bale around when they don't have bale forks. Well, as you can see from the front of our tractor, we don't have bale forks either. The breeze is picking up. Boy, that's where that wind chill comes from. Anyways, on the side of the tractor bucket, there's this chain hook that's welded on here, and there's one on the other side as well. So what you can do is nose your bucket up to a round bale, hook a chain in here around the bale, hook it to the other chain hook on the other side, and then pick up on your bucket, and it basically works like a cinch or a belt and keeps the bale in place, and you can move it all around the yard wherever you want to go. So give that a try. Just weld the standard chain hook, obviously make sure it's the right grade. Weld that to the side of your tractor bucket, might just save your back. Hello fellas, want some lunch? All right, I got some grain for you. All right, so being that it was so brutally cold, and as you know, it was about -10 inside of our chicken house, I did stop in there, quickly flip the bedding over with a shovel and a little bit with a fork, and just kind of make things bumpy and uneven. Chickens don't like that. Chickens like things to be tilled nice, level, and flat. So give them an uneven surface, give them something to do. Later this evening, I'll stop in with another bag of wood shavings. They can work and mix that all in and keep things nice and dry in there so it doesn't get frozen and clogged together like that. Speaking of frozen and clogged together, look at this overhead radiant heater in the shop here. Man, we've been killing dinosaur after dinosaur today. I don't know if this thing is actually shut off in the last 24 hours. It's only like 6 or 7 degrees in the shop. We don't keep it very warm, but it's been running steady. So, you know, it's cold outside. Anyway, speaking of blowing up dinosaurs, the other day I did a video and I thought I was gonna get all kinds of attention because I was talking about heating our home with natural gas. I was really gonna get some folks that are off grid kind of bent out of shape, but turns out no, actually what got everybody bent out of shape was my discussion on avocados, because apparently that's what's important in life. But yeah, no, I mean, off grid for us, our first year we were off grid, and then we built the shop and subsequently the house, and then we got ourselves plugged back into the matrix, and that was really just a social decision for us. I mean, we were kind of determined that we were going to build the house and die in the house, and we didn't want a house to be the thing that killed us. So, and aside from that, when we were 80 years old, we didn't want our kids to put us in a home. So we built the house to be, you know, a little bit more functional for our later years. Anyways, I've been known to call a few people out, especially when it comes down to food sustainability and some of their environmental practices. And if you're going to do that, you got to expect a little bit of in return. So one of our viewers, Glenn, he chucked it right back and he said, "Well, what about tea?" So I have this one vice. Every day I have a cup of tea. In fact, I probably have like 3 cups of tea every day, right? And that's my big vice. So by comparison, sustainability initiatives, where does tea stand? So tea's got a bad, oh boy, did they ever get a bad rap, and mostly because of the slave labor thing. Like they worked some poor Sri Lankan ladies' fingers to the bone. It wasn't good, and they really weren't altogether too concerned about, you know, soil degradation and things like that. Since about 2005, there's really been kind of an awakening in the industry, and there's a movement called Tea 2030 that's moving to have a completely carbon neutral tea industry by 2030. I mean, that's a tall order for sure. But if you actually look at what the carbon footprint is of a cup of tea. So if it's loose tea, the carbon footprint is 20 grams for a cup of tea. If it's bagged tea, so I mean, as usual, you go Red Rose or Tetley or whatever, you know, the standards, Twinings, you stuff to get in the grocery store, it is 10 times that much because of the packaging. So the bag in and of itself, plus all the packaging, now brings you up to 200 grams. Well, what does that really mean? Well, I think it's 227 grams is a can of Coke, and 375 grams is a can of beer. So I mean, without a doubt, if you're trying to, you know, lessen your carbon footprint when it comes to your choice of beverage, you're probably best to just drink water out of a ditch. But I usually like something a little bit more flavorful than that. So a cup of tea at 20 grams. We haven't switched. We do have quite a bit of loose tea, but we do have lots of bagged tea as well. But regardless of that, it is still the better choice than lots of other things out there. So as a sweet little side note too, all of our used tea gets put in with our food scraps, gets run out to the chicken house, and it gets composted in that deep bedding system. So then some folks actually want to know, what's the best type of tea? Well, okay, well, how many different types of tea are there? There's actually only one. Camellia sinensis, that is the tea plant. Every different type of tea comes from one plant. What happens is after they pick the plant, there's a certain time period between when the plant is picked and when they apply heat to the leaf. And that determines whether it is white tea, green tea, black tea, or oolong tea. So downstream from there, every subsequent variety that you ever get all comes from how the tea in and of itself is processed. So that's your fun fact of the day, and I think that's got me really wanting one of those cups of tea. So I'm gonna let you go for now. I hope you have a fantastic evening. We'll see you tomorrow.